Hello, my fellow warriors. I'm back from planning and executing Rebel Capitalist Live. I took a short hiatus to get that wonderful event out of the way, and it was a huge success. So thank you to everybody that came out and supported the channel. And now I'm back. Welcome to Warrior Insights and my Warrior Athletica channel, where I post health and fitness information. If you're interested on that, please check out that channel. As always, this supporting article may be found at athenaangelique.substack.com. Today's topic of discussion is the supplement Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about, vitamin D3 and the multitude of benefits that it can provide. Vitamin D3 is a hormone produced in the skin in amounts estimated up to 25,000 international units a day if you are outside exposed to the natural sunlight. Vitamin D3 deficiency is very common due to both a lack of adequate sun exposure and is prevalent in very few food sources. Now we look at the current recommendations provided by the United Kingdom and the National Institutes of Health. The United Kingdom's government recommends 400 units of vitamin D per day, while the National Institutes of Health recommend a paltry 600 to 800 units per day. As you can see in this chart, this is the National Institutes of Health recommendation from 0 to greater than 70. And again, you see a horrible paltry recommendation of 400 units to 800 units. But these government agencies aren't following the new science that is coming out every single day. And I'm going to review several studies that have been released as late as March 2023 that show that these numbers are just way too low, about 10 times too low. So first I'm going to look at a VA study that looks at vitamin D3 supplementation when it comes to suicide and intentional self-harm reductions. The research paper from the Department of Veteran Affairs, and here's the title and the subject, published in February 1st, has found a 45% reduction in self-harm and suicide in veterans that had taken vitamin D3 supplements as opposed to those who hadn't. And the sample size was huge. Black veterans especially benefited as their skin naturally filters out more of the ultraviolet rays, and their level of self-harm and suicide was reduced by 64% with the addition of vitamin D supplementation. Lack of vitamin D is widely associated with depression, especially during the winter months, and we'll go further along into the side effects of a vitamin D deficiency further in the article. The sample size consisted of 981,770 veterans over the course of 8 years. So they split the group in half. 50% or 490,885 received the vitamin D supplementation, and the other half did not receive the supplementation. You see that suicide rates and intentional self-harm was 48% reduced. Vitamin D3 occurs naturally in the body and is better metabolized by humans. Vitamin D2 supplementation was associated with a 45% lower risk of suicide attempts and self-harm, and vitamin D2 is derived from plants. When examining vitamin D3 supplementation once again in Black veterans, 64% had a lower risk of suicide attempt and self-harm relative to the control group. In this chart, we see that veterans have a much higher prevalence than non-U.S. veteran adults of suicide and self-harm. Supplementation in higher vitamin D doses led to greater risk reduction, according to the study. The conclusions from the Department of Veterans Affairs study were vitamin D3 oral supplementation was associated with a suicide attempt and intentional self-harm risk reduction of approximately 45 to 48%. The supplementation with higher daily dosage of vitamin D3 was associated with lower suicide attempt and self-harm risk than lower dosages. And it was more significant among Black veterans receiving supplementation with vitamin D than white veterans, although all benefited in the study. And it is a relatively safe, easily accessible, and affordable supplement. Of course, who's not going to advertise a widely safe, effective, and affordable medication? Well, Big Pharma. And you know why? Because they're not going to profit off of that because it's not patentable, it's inexpensive, it's widely available, and they can't control it. They can't mark up the price, and so they're not going to advertise it. They're not going to do large mass control trials, and they have nothing to gain by it. Here's a very cool pictograph of the symptoms that show vitamin D deficiency in your body, and we'll go over that a little bit further along in my article. Vitamin D deficiency is prevalent in the United States, with more than 30% of U.S. military members to have a deficiency. And military members are particularly susceptible to PTSD, depression, and self-harm. Vitamin D deficiency is associated with depression, fatigue, changes in mood, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, changes in appetite and weight, insomnia, forgetfulness, obesity, schizophrenia, and seasonal affective disorder. Vitamin D receptors are located in areas of the brain developing depression, including the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. In addition, many gene expressions rely on vitamin D to function properly. Vitamin D deficiency is also linked with weakened immunity, heart disease, asthma, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, rickets, tuberculosis, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune disease, colon cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer. Here is another graph of how vitamin D3 affects the brain and how it is transported through the liver and kidneys, and the cool things that happen or the benefits of D3 on the brain as well. The great part is you can't really overdose on vitamin D3 unless you take over 60,000 international units per day over the course of several weeks. So again, you could take it in relatively high doses, and toxicity was only found in greater than 60,000 units per day, sustained over the course of several weeks. Another study of vitamin D3 in 4,700 patients with low vitamin D3 levels in psychiatric wards was conducted, and some were given 5,000 units, some were given 50,000 units due to disease concerns, and the great part is none of the patients experienced any vitamin D3 induced hypercalcemia or any adverse events attributable to vitamin D3. In 3 patients, higher dosages of vitamin D3 had marked improvements in psoriasis. And so we see that the average serum calcium level in non-vitamin D3 group had a mean level of 27.1, and in the sustained group that took the supplementation over the course of time had a mean level of 118.9 nanograms per liter. I've included what Quest Diagnostics labels as deficiency is less than 20 nanograms per liter. Insufficiency is 20 to 29 nanograms per milliliter, and optimal is greater than or equal to 30 nanograms per milliliter. To reiterate, the supplemented patients had a mean vitamin D3 level of 118, and non-supplemented patients only had a mean of 27.1. In addition, vitamin D3 has an effect on the parathyroid hormone. When there's a lack of vitamin D3, the parathyroid hormone is released in response to low calcium levels. The parathyroid hormone works overtime when you don't have enough vitamin D3 in the system to try and keep the calcium levels up in the body. Again, the article summarizes that long-term supplementation with vitamin D3 in dosage ranging from 5,000 to 50,000 international units per day appear to be safe and well tolerated. And it takes about 12 months for the benefits to plateau. So you got to stick with it for a while, 12 months, and keep continuing with it to receive the maximum benefits of it. But again, you see that it gets sustained in around 97 nanograms per milliliter. Then I looked at a different study that examined vitamin D3 and pre-diabetes and its effects. This was published in March of 2023 and showed that vitamin D3 reduced risk for diabetes by 15%. And you see once they maintained a mean serum of at least 125 nanomoles per liter compared with 50 to 74 nanomoles per liter in the control group. During the follow-up, it reduced risk for diabetes by 76%. So we see that the vitamin D3 increased the likelihood of regression to normal glucose regulation by 30%. This is huge when it comes to prediabetes and potentially preventing yourself from getting full-blown diabetes. What other benefits are there? Well, I looked at another study of vitamin D3 and dementia. This study was published in March of 2023 and resulted in the following conclusion. Vitamin D3 exposure was associated with a 40% lower risk of dementia incidence versus no exposure to vitamin D. Effects were significantly greater in females versus males. And vitamin D3 has potential for dementia prevention, especially in high-risk strata. But why doesn't Big Pharma want you to know? Why isn't this being shouted from the rooftops as one of the greatest supplements to help you with a multitude of issues? Well, as you can see, Big Pharma stands to make a lot of money from keeping you on medications such as HIV, autoimmune disease, multiple sclerosis, and type 2 diabetes. You could see the profits are in the billions, multiple billions of dollars per year. So can they make that money off of vitamin D3 and advertising vitamin D3? Absolutely not. So what can you do to prevent yourself or protect yourself from potentially these host of multiple diseases and ailments that I've covered? Well, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving you any recommendations without advising you to seek a doctor's recommendation or approval first before beginning any supplement regimen. But I can only tell you what Dr. John Campbell talks about doing and what I am doing myself personally to protect and prevent myself from getting any of these ailments or illnesses. Dr. John Campbell takes 4,000 units or 100 micrograms per day of vitamin D3 combined with 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 for his personal consumption. And I'm currently taking about 5,000 international units or 125 micrograms of vitamin D3 combined with 90 micrograms of K2 per day. Now, you choose whatever you would like to do, but myself personally, given all this research and all the ailments I could protect myself from by just taking this cheap and effective supplement, I'm going to do it. But your choice is up to you. What I just want to do is help you, give you an informed consent, informed decision, and let you draw your own conclusions. Why aren't the governments of the world changing their recommendations based upon this new research? I'll let you decide. Government's not going to take care of you. Ultimately, you're responsible for your own health and your family's health and your well-being. In order for you to protect yourself and your family, you have to be healthy. And health starts from the inside. Feed yourself and supplement yourself with things that are going to increase your longevity, but not just your longevity, not your lifespan, but the quality of life that you lead. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and as always, ever forward. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content.